So if we select our test functions, this takes us to the function menu. If we select DME, our DME menu. In this case, I'd like to choose the ILS and DME, which I select. This brings up the ILS and DME test page. If you notice in the bottom left-hand corner, the default and the configuration pages are grayed out because we use these ILS setup and DME setup buttons to control each section. Firstly, I'll go to the ILS setup. This takes us through to our ILS test page. You would do the setup as you normally would for an ILS test, and that can be found in the relevant section of this training course. So for example, you would set up the configuration. Let's say we're using an antenna. We'd come back, we'd set the frequency, power of the localizer, power of the glide slope, and the ident. Once those selections are made, I can hit exit. It takes us back to the ILS and DME page. Same thing for the DME setup. If I click the DME setup, this is the standard DME page. Use my config and my parameters to set up the scenario of the test that I'd like to run. Again, if you can look at the DME section of this training course, that will explain this page. Once this page has been set up, I exit again, back to my ILS and DME page. Now in this case, when I run the test, my ILS will be active on the chosen frequency, and the arrows on the right-hand side of the page control the localizer and the glide slope element of the ILS. At the bottom there, you have a grayed out indicator that will show you the DME distance to the beacon. In this case, it's set to fly into the beacon, so we're flying in towards the beacon. When I run the test, everything is now active. I can move my localizer. As I'm doing this, the DME is counting down in distance as if it was flying towards the beacon. If I want to change it to out, I push the out. The ILS remains active, but I'm flying away from the beacon. It gives you control so you can exercise both instruments at the same time. The idea is to set up a realistic scenario for testing the instrumentation and bad connections, poor wiring, that kind of issue. To stop the test, hit the stop test button and exit back.